Bob, tell us about that intervention.
Well, first of all, go to 1975, where an amazing thing happened in this country. A heavy industry opened its doors with autonomous work teams, or as they're sometimes called, even though it means something slightly different, self-managed teams. And that was at Addy, Washington. And Addy took the raw material, turned it into magnesium ingots, and they were the only one in the whole Alcoa system doing that. It was needed. In fact, by 1989, I got a phone call from the internal consultant there. He was a human HR man too, and he was a graduate of our graduate program, a guy named Tom Combs, saying, "Can you possibly come?" I was in Philadelphia. He said, "Can you come? We're in terrible shape." And so I went to work with them, and about 6 months later, a man named Don Simonic arrived. Well, in a nutshell, Don had been given orders to help close the plant. But Don, when we met, Don said to me, "I don't know who you are. I'll tell you, I hate consultants. But my boss told me there was one thing I had to do when I came here, and it's keep you. I don't know why." That's how we started. And but Don then later was saying things like, "You know, I knew how to kick butt, to to be a mean boss to people. I knew there was a better way, but I didn't know what it was. But then I found out when we started working together." So we had a marvelous relationship over many years. The first two at Addy. Now, the one thing that happened then, they had all these so-called self-managed teams, and they really were. It's an oxymoron though, because you always will find out who's responsible. But let me talk about the 8 crews who were in the back at the furnace, where the ore was put into the furnace, and you hope to get a huge recovery in terms of the ingot. They were getting 72%. The French who sold them the process told them that's all you can get. And they had also, Pittsburgh, the headquarters for Alcoa, had put $20 million into engineering work to try to get that percent up, but nothing was working. So Don, first of all, we had to put authority back in that system. There had to be somebody accountable, not a group. In fact, the groups, if it's a group, there's nobody accountable. The only way you know think of 8 crews here, and somebody gets fired in upper management. 2,000 miles away at corporate, they thought that guy was responsible for this fiasco. But he was never told he was. They didn't know he was. He didn't have authority anyway to do anything. But they had to pick somebody. And that's the way it would work. So anyway, we did a couple things. And I say we, but Don's the one. I learned so much from Don in this. One thing was, with this group, we got a supervisor. Her name was Rita Vickery. That's right, a supervisor. Now in my book, Cultural Change, I write about this, but I call her a different name. I call her Ann, and I say she managed 3 groups. The only reason I said that was because people don't believe somebody can manage 8 groups, but she could. Now, 8 groups over 24 hours, in other words, 3 shifts. But she brought accountability into that system with these crews. Now the crews, the 8 crews, in an actual measurement that we did, let's say this crew was highly productive. And let's say this crew was the least productive of the 8. Also, I can tell you that then this crew that was highly productive on an instrument that John Scher and I developed would say that if they differed with Rita now, they could say so. Or if they had differed before with any management, they could say so before she came. They also were pretty clear about their roles. I'll stop there. There were other indicators. This crew had the highest production, and of the safety problems of all 8 groups had 2% of them. This group with the lowest production had 28% of the safety problems. And by some miracle, it would go like 28, 23, 21, right up. It was amazing. Those that were able to be the most open, according to the data we had not only the highest production, had the best quality, I said, had the best safety record, and they had the lowest absenteeism. So, and a lot of folks have known that. Will be statistics for a lot of people. So we began then to figure out, what do we do here besides get Rita in there? Well, Don had a wonderful way of talking. He had something I turned into a rainbow chart. He went up to the board and he would say, he didn't draw the rainbow, but I saw it there. He'd say, the bottom line is, we're making this ore at, it was about $1.48 a pound, and we have to be down to $1.21, and we have to be there in 9 months. Ooh, everybody said that's not possible. Then a second line that, again, I graphically put in later, is we got to figure out what processes we have to improve in order to get there. And the top line is human factors, not HR here. How are we going to function with people so that they can engage in the processes so that we can reach this? Well, one of the things we did back there was we immediately said to the engineers, you are not their bosses back there. In the absence of vacuum in self-directed managed teams, somebody starts bossing, you know. And so we said to them, you are consultants with these people. Well, they freaked out at that. You know. We can't tell them what to do, no. But you got to lend them your expertise in the process. The people at the furnace are going to be responsible for furnace recovery and accountable to their new supervisor, Rita. And your role then is to help them. And we even had a 1-week training with these guys to teach them how to be change agents, how to use their expertise, but how not to shove it on people, how to tune into people. And we had some of that training was done with the crew that they were working with. So the crews, I'll just tell you this, that the crews then would identify the situation. They start putting their expertise in. And within a few months, they moved from 72% recovery to 84%. Bottom line, the company went from, he lowered the cost from $1.48 past the $1.21 to $1.08 in 9 months. Because we involved the people who really knew and who, once they were involved, really cared and tuned into it. So that's the essence of it. Business Week said 72% productivity gain in those 2 years at Addy. Now, they had rough times later. I mean, you know, that was then, that there's now, I'm talking 20 years ago, a little more than that. And, but that's another story.